Our speaker is Karen Peak. Karen Peak is local here. She's a member of the First Baptist Church of Norfolk. She was diagnosed with adrenal disease and heart condition back in 2008 and was unable to continue her profession as a nurse. And in the midst of her chronic difficulty, she discovered a new passion. And that was in a very unfamiliar world for her. It was in the intricacies of cooking. From that, she began writing recipes, and she's a cookbook author and an inspirational speaker, an entrepreneur, and she's going to be talking to us. She's done TV demonstrations along with her writings, and we're fortunate this evening we also have her books at the end of the presentation. They're on sale in the back for $16.99, so hopefully you'll have an opportunity to look through those as well. She has a passion for encouraging others, to never give up on life in spite of circumstances and not to be afraid of the unknown. And so tonight she's going to share her testimony and inspirations and things that have changed her life and her relationship with God as well.
I hate microphones. Can everybody hear me? No? Want me to yell a little louder? Ah! Yeah, okay. Well, as she said, my name is Karen Peak. I am from here, kind of. I'm a military daughter, military brat, so I'm from all over, really. But this is where we call home right now. And I'm going to just share with you my testimony. I'm going to just tell it to you like it is. We've got some hilarity in there. We've got some hard times, but hopefully I can keep you awake and interested, and we can have a good evening. So I'm going to start with coming out of the wound. I know that's a long time ago, but my wound experience was a little bit different. I came out with bilateral hip dysplasia. Anyone familiar with this? Any nurses out here? No? One? Two? Wow, this is the fewest nurses I've seen in a room ever. But bilateral hip dysplasia is basically, I was born without hip sockets. So when I came out of the womb, I dangled. Literally, like Jell-O. My legs could not, you know how babies, when they come out, their legs kind of curve and hang? I didn't do that. I just dangled loose. And so the doctors were concerned and told my parents, I will never walk. I will be stuck in a wheelchair for the rest of my life and have surgery after surgery to fix the situation. But my parents, being from a Christian background, they took us to church, and they told the people at the church, my daughter was born with bilateral hip dysplasia. Is there some praying that we can do for my daughter? They had scheduled a surgery date for me a few weeks and months in advance of this, and they had x-rays. And the x-rays showed bone, solid bone, but no hole for the bone to go into. So my parents went to the church, told the ladies and prayer warriors of the church, this is my daughter's situation. So what they did was they prayed over my body, and they just gave it to God, and whatever God's will was for my body to be done, that's what they prayed for. About a week or two, probably before the operation was set, they did one more x-ray to find out, okay, what are we working with? Let's just see what's going to go on through the operation. And something miraculous happened. I had never had an operation, but that x-ray, 2 hip sockets were there. Just miraculously, there were sockets. So I never actually had an operation. What the doctors did was they put my little bones in those sockets, and I looked like Forrest Gump for many years after that. I walked like a penguin with my leg braces, but those leg braces are what kept me able to do what I'm doing, walking. I played soccer for 14 years, was a goalkeeper, I did softball, and the doctors told me, and my parents, she's never going to walk. So look at me, God does miracles. Don't ever, ever doubt what God can do. Growing up, I grew up in a Christian home, and I always wanted to be one of those kids. I hated school, I hated learning, I still do in some ways. It never came easy for me. And I never understood why it was so difficult. Math, you do not even want to ask me anything. I still count on my fingers. I have to admit it's that pathetic. But I just didn't like school. 1, I was bullied. 2, I just didn't like, it was hard to learn. And with that, you have a lot of problems with kids when you grow up in an environment like this, because they are very ruthless with things that they say. They're very ruthless with things that they do. So I actually tried to play hooky more than not, but luckily my dad is a doctor. He knew when I was faking it, and my mom did too. So I never got to be that kid that got to stay home and watch TV because they were like, nope, fever, you're going to school. But I'm actually kind of glad that that was how it was because later in life really changed for me. But going back to the bullying in school, I was picked on because I was tall. I grew a woman before most people, and you know how horrible that is if you're in school and you grow to be a woman and everyone's picking on you. I've played soccer and I'd be running down the field and they'd sing songs about me bouncing along. It was pathetic. And then you have braces on top of it and they make fun of your mouth being railroad tracks. I mean, it was horrible. And so with this bullying going on in school, not making A's, because I never made A's, I made D's. I had to work for my D's and C's literally, and sometimes my F's, I worked hard for those. But I managed to get through somehow. But basically, because of all the bullying and stuff that happened, I was very suicidal. I wanted to kill myself at a young age. I tried many things. I'm not going to give tips to anyone in here who might be thinking about it, but I did try almost everything in the book. I also was abused growing up by several different people, and the physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional and sexual abuse, you feel like you're worthless. Being a military girl, when you move around a lot, I'm sure some of you in here, being from Hampton Roads, can relate, you are desperate to find friends. When you move to one location and you have to pick up where you left off, you want to be included. You want to fit in. You want to find a group that's going to accept you for whatever you look like, however smart or stupid you think you are, or whatever. And so when you move around a lot, it's hard. And then with the bullying that comes with it, it's even harder. So you will become friends with anyone and anything. Even if it's not the best thing for you, you're still going to do it. I did get involved with some of the wrong people, which made me a little bit more suicidal growing up. But this lasted for years and years. I hated myself. I still, to this day, am having a hard time loving myself. I don't loathe and despise myself anymore, but it's a gradual thing. And if anyone in here has ever had low self-esteem or had some type of abuse, you can relate to what I'm saying to you. So this happened through many years. In the midst of all this time, I get picked on by teachers like nursing school. All I ever wanted to do was be a nurse. I love the blood and gore. That is my thing. I just wanted to be a part of it. So I went to school for this, and I had teachers say to me in the middle of students, the whole class, "You're stupid. You're not going to graduate. You're going to flunk out of here." So of course, I'm going to think, all right, I'm a stupid idiot. I'm a dumb blind. I'm not going to make it. But I have to tell you, when God wants you to do something, He's going to fool those people. I actually graduated nursing school with an A average, which I have to tell you, I never made A's in school. By the grace of God, I made A's in nursing school. So it's like, you think I'm going to flunk? Look at me, I just passed. But it was just difficult for me growing up with all of that kind of stuff. But then, just by the way, I'm not nervous. With my condition, I'll tell you about later, I have shortness of breath. So this is not nerves, this is just my disease, and I'll share that with you. So hopefully you can keep up with me. But with the nursing school, I went through it, everything was fine. I was just moving around. Finally, I graduate school, I finally became a nurse. That's all I ever wanted to do. It was make a difference in someone's life and make them happy, make them smile, whatever. That's all I ever wanted to do. Because my dad was a doctor, I wanted to be like him. I admired him. I thought that he had a noble career. I loved just being with people. So I got to be a nurse for about 6 to 7 years, and then my life changed. I got sick with Graves' disease. Thyroid, anybody know what Graves' disease is? You've had Graves? It is a horrible thing in some ways, but then again, I actually enjoyed Graves because with Graves' disease, you can eat anything you want and not gain weight. I got so skinny, eating like a pig, I loved it. One meal, I'm not kidding you, I had 4 hamburgers and I had 3 hot dogs and 1 bag of chips, 1 meal. And I was still hungry. But with Graves, what's going on in there is you have Hashimoto's, which is where your thyroid is shot. Some of you may have hypothyroidism. With hypo, you have a hard time losing weight. You have a hard time with energy. Me, I had so much energy, it just was melting off, and I was sweating all the time, which as a woman, we hate doing that, but it's just, Graves is a very hard disease. When I got diagnosed, they said that my levels were 0.00. They have never seen that before. So they said, we have got to surgically remove this thing and get it out of your body. You're in dangerous stage, we've got to do it now. The day before the operation, the surgeon calls me at work and he says, "You will die tomorrow on the operating table if we operate. We cannot do this." And I'm thinking, you've got to be kidding me, right? Because I've been preparing for this emotionally for a month, and now you're telling me I'm going to die tomorrow? Are you kidding me? But he said, "I don't want this to happen. Your father works here. We want the best," which even if he didn't, they'd still want the best, of course. But I was like, okay, thank you. But after all that preparation, a month goes by. They put me on PTU, which is a pill, which is supposed to cool it down. So when you operate, everything goes fine. The pill didn't work. We went back for more blood work. My levels never changed. And he said, "We've got to get this out of you. What we're going to do instead is put a lot of extra arms and eyeballs in here. So if anything happened to you, we can prevent the worst from happening." Now, what they were afraid of is with thyroid disease, the Graves' disease, my heart rate is so high as it is. You put anesthesia inside of me, my heart rate is going to skyrocket to where I will go into thyroid storm. That is where your body convulses, you get a fever of 105 plus, your heart rate is off the charts, and it takes you to the point of dying. I actually, in the process of the operation, started to go into thyroid storm, but by the grace of God, we came out of it and everything was fine. And I was thinking, okay, my life is normal again. I can exercise, I can work as a nurse, and everything is fine. But I was sadly mistaken. I wasn't that lucky. About 6 months later, I started having these symptoms reappear where I was short of breath all the time. I was fatigued to where my husband would have to dress me, pull me up off the couch, pull me out of a car, and I was so fatigued. I had high heart rate all the time, heart palpitations, constant nausea, and I would have attacks. And the only way to describe them is that it's similar to a heart attack in these symptoms. You have really fast high heart rate, you have heart palpitations, my body turns to jello, I cannot speak, my throat closes up, my bladder wants to explode, I want to hurl all over anyone and everyone around me. You talk to me, I can't hear a word you're saying, it's the weirdest thing. And it comes on when it wants to. It can last for 30 minutes, 5 minutes to 6 hours to all day long. I don't know when they're gonna come. I don't know how to stop them when they come. It's just something that I have to deal with. When all this stuff started happening, it kind of scared me because I didn't know what was going on. People were thinking they were panic attacks, and nothing scares me but tarantulas and vomit. So I knew it wasn't a panic attack. And we wanted answers. We went from doctor to doctor all over the state of Tennessee, because that's where we were living at the time. No one knew how to help me. Then we moved here, and no one knew how to help me. We went back to Tennessee, no one knew how to help me. Finally, moving back here, and I know it sounds confusing, my life is very confusing, but we lived in Tennessee, then we lived here, then we went back to Tennessee because we're crazy, and then we moved here again because I missed the beach and I needed to be here. So when we moved back here, that's when I found a cardiologist, and he just didn't know what to think of what was going on. So he actually sent me to another cardiologist in Richmond, Virginia. From there, they sent me to Mayo Clinic. And if anyone in this room ever gets sick, I recommend Mayo Clinic to anyone, any day. That is the coolest place in the world. It is great. They're on time. I've never been anywhere to a doctor where they're early or on time seeing you. And they're the friendliest little people. They actually enjoy their job, but I don't want anyone sick, so let's forget I said that. But we went to Mayo Clinic for 5 days. Constant testing on my heart and on my lungs and in my brain, 5 straight days of testing. Finally, we got a diagnosis that I did not want to hear. I was livid and angry about my diagnosis. They told me that I had POTS disease, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And I had not just one problem, but I had 2. And that's a heart condition that is linked to this disease called inappropriate sinus tachycardia. Big, long words, you can't say fast, and it's just one confusion. It's a new disease. Doctors did not learn this in med school. I'm actually teaching my cardiologist about this and my father about this because it's such a new and rare disease that a lot of people get misdiagnosed with. But I didn't want to hear this disease. I didn't want to accept it because they said it's a lifelong chronic condition. The way I was born with it, I'm never going to get rid of this disease. It's disabling to people because you can't work because you have the attacks. You're so fatigued that you just can't do anything. So I was angry. I was like, I'm young. Why do you have to let me have this? I'm too young to have my life taken away from me. So before all this happened, I didn't tell you that I had to have a heart surgery. The heart surgery didn't fix the problem. Nothing seems to help. After coming home from Mayo Clinic, I was angry. I was livid. If you were healthy, you didn't want to know me because I was going to be mean to you. If you got to work, I wasn't nice to you because I wanted to work. I'm a natural workaholic. I can't help myself. I had a sickness of mine. I need to work. And all I had to do was sit at home every day on the couch and watch the paint on the walls. Just, okay, we need to paint here, this place to have a touch up. I'm not a TV watcher all day long, so I literally just sat there angry. I was mad at God because I thought he took my life from me. I wanted to be a nurse. That's all I wanted to do, and I couldn't be a nurse anymore. What was more devastating, they told me, you can't have children because it's too dangerous to have a child. So I was like, seriously, you really have killed me off, doctors. I can't do anything with my life, so fine. You're going to do this to me? God, I'm going to be mad at you too. So I was a very wretched little girl coming home from Mayo Clinic. My husband and I were on the verge of divorce after this time because when you go from having money to one person not working, the finances going completely out the door because you have doctor bills piling up and you've got an economy and a house and a mortgage and bills and everything else, you just can't survive. There's going to be stress in your marriage. He married an extrovert. He married someone who wanted to go places all the time, who wanted to travel, who was weird and crazy, which I kind of still am, but this disease has kind of turned me into an introvert. He had to get to know me, and I had to get to know him again. He also had to deal with the fact that his wife is sick, and he can't do a thing about it. I was angry, so I took it out on him. During this time, I was still very suicidal, even more so being diagnosed, because I was like, all right, my life is over. I just want to kill myself. So those years were miserable, probably more for him than me. I don't know how he didn't leave me. I don't know how he didn't kill me, because I would have killed myself if I was him. But by the grace of God, he was there, and he was supportive as much as he could be in this trial that he was going through. But during this time, I literally just thought, okay, what am I supposed to do with myself? I'm still young, can't work. Seriously, what am I going to do? Well, during this time, we go back to Tennessee for a football game. UT Volunteers, that's where my husband went to school, is UT. Me, I could care less about football. I'm all for the mascots. That's my thing, is the mascots, and that's it. And so we went back. My parents had season tickets. And during this football weekend, Don Piper, I'm sure some of you have heard of his book, 90 Minutes in Heaven. I don't read a lot because, again, I hate to learn, or it's just hard for me. So I don't read a whole lot. But his book I read, mainly because it's blood and gore. I don't know if you've read it, but he was in an accident in Texas, and he was killed in the accident, and he spent 90 minutes in heaven. I loved his book. It was incredible. And he talked about his experience in heaven, walking the streets with God, and it was amazing. Well, that weekend, he came to our parents' church, and he gave his testimony. And I was so thrilled, but I didn't get to enjoy his testimony. I had an attack at the service, and I got nothing out of it. This was a very horrible attack. But it's amazing what God will do when he wants you to hear something or do something. I only got 18 words out of his entire testimony, 18. And he was there for probably close to an hour, and I got 18 words. That's pretty sad, but that's the truth. But God knew that those 18 words are what I needed to hear to change my life. Those words were, if God can bring a dead man back to life, just imagine what he could do for you. That really hit home to me because I was sitting there thinking, yeah, I haven't died yet. I've wanted to, but I haven't. I still have lungs. I still have a heartbeat. I can do something. I'm not a dead person. I can do something. And so that's when my life changed. I sat there on the pew and I said to myself, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I said, God, I want true peace and happiness. I have never experienced true peace and happiness in my entire life because when you're suicidal, you're not happy. So I've never experienced true peace and happiness. And so I wanted true peace and happiness. So all I did was I sat there on that pew and I said, okay, God, I'm going to accept this disease. I'm going to quit going in denial about it. I'm going to quit saying that I don't have it, because of course I did. And so I said, I want to accept it. I'm going to accept it proudly, happily. I'm going to enjoy this as much as I can because I've had to learn a new normal. I can't do a lot of things normal people can do, but I've had to learn to live with what I can do. And when I sat there on the pew and said, I want to accept this and please give me true peace and happiness, the second he knew that I was serious about accepting what my life was at that moment, I cannot describe to you what happened that morning. It was miraculous. All the anger and bitterness from all those years of abuse were gone. I held no more grudges. I was no longer angry. I didn't care about any of that stuff anymore. I was so happy and in love with God at that moment that I've never experienced before. And I became a Christian at a young age. So I was a Christian, but I never understood a true loving relationship with God as I did that moment, that Sunday morning. Well, when I was having this attack and having my moment with God, I was weeping. And if anyone in here has ever had one of those moments with God, you can relate. It is uncontrollable crying that you cannot stop. You're sobbing, you can't talk. It's as if your family member died. It's that kind of weeping that God will just change your life. I scared my husband to death. He literally bent down and grabbed me and said, "Are you okay? Are you having a heart attack?" Because I was having the attack, but sobbing on top of it. And I just said, "No, I'm having a moment with God. Leave me alone. I'll be fine." So after I prayed and I just accepted this, as soon as I did that, God gave me a vision. And that vision scared me to death. And that vision was, I want you to write a cookbook. And I did laugh at him because after I tell you this, I'm going to tell you how badly I cook. I almost burnt my parents. I destroyed things. I could have killed people with how I cooked. And so for him to say, please write a cookbook, I really was like, are you kidding me? I don't cook. What are you doing? And then after he said, I want you to write a cookbook, he said, I want you to have a TV talk show one day. And I hate being filmed. I hate having my picture taken. And I know it doesn't look like it now since he's back there filming me. But when God tells you to do something, you have to do it. I'm sorry. That's just how it is with God. So I said, okay, how am I going to be on TV? Seriously. All right, I did it. I accepted it. We came home back here to Virginia Beach, and that's where I went to culinary school, was here in Virginia Beach. Did y'all know they have culinary school here? And it was in my living room on Food Network. Did y'all know that? I recommend it to anyone. But truly, I came home and discovered there was a Food Network. I had no idea, because I never watched the Food Channel. I didn't care about it, but I discovered that, and that is truly where I went to culinary school, as well as in my kitchen by trial and error. Now, let me reverse a little bit and go back to my childhood. I was about 10 years old, maybe 11, somewhere in there. My dad was at war. I was home alone with my cat, and my mom was out walking the neighborhood with a friend. And I was hungry. I wanted a little snack. So I got a bagel. I stuck it in the microwave. Does anyone have any ideas of where this is going? It's pretty sad, yeah. I was that blonde. I put it in there on a paper towel for 10 long minutes. And I came through halfway through the cooking process or fire process, and my house was on fire. The microwave, fire. The house was filled with black smoke. I was so scared that, oh my goodness, my dad is at war. He's coming home to ashes, and my mom's going to kill me. I just stopped the microwave. I don't even know what I did at that point, but yeah, I almost burnt their house down. And it is possible, I promise you, I used to burn Jell-O. You can burn it, I'm sorry. I was not smart enough to know when it's hard for me to read directions. It's part of this disease of mine. I've learned that I don't understand certain things like some people understand. There's something in the brain, I can't explain it. So it's hard for me to read things and understand them. So I would literally put the sauce pot on the stove, boil the water, and you have the dish next to it. Stupid me put the Jell-O in the sauce pot on the stove and it burned. So I'd have to redo it over and over. When it came to making brownies, I added too much water because I don't measure, so we've had soup instead of brownies. The worst one, 2 others, I was making quiche in the oven, and I set the oven on fire. And by the way, if you ever do that, do not put water on it. It gets worse. Put flour on it, it kills it. So there's your little tip if you're cooking like I used to. But the worst one and most embarrassing one of all, Thanksgiving came around and I cooked my very first turkey. My in-laws were coming into town. I wanted to impress them and say, yay, I can actually do something. And it was around 2 or 3 in the morning, and Butterball was closed. You can't call them at that time, so don't even try. They're closed for the night. And so it was me, myself, and the bird And I was scared to death because I put it in there, I had herbs in it, butter, onion, it was beautiful. I took it out, let it rest like you're supposed to. I started to carve the bird, and it was bleeding so badly. And I said to myself, I have ruined this. Now, I was not smart enough at 2 in the morning to think if you put it back in the oven, it'll finish cooking. So I have woods in my backyard. I literally took the carcass and the meat and the whole thing and threw it over the fence because I thought I ruined our dinner. And if I had just known half the bird was over the fence, and it dawned on me, oh my goodness, what if I put it back in the oven, would it finish cooking? And guess what it does? It really does. So we ate half a turkey for Thanksgiving, and that was my cooking disasters. So this is why when God told me to write a cookbook, I was like, heck no, I'm going to kill people. I'm not going to do this, because when we were first married, we ate the same thing every stinking night, every week. Monday was spaghetti, which is the one meal I know how to cook because it's a family secret and it's not in the book, so don't try to ask me for it. Then I had to have Mexican. I really should have been born Mexican. I'm obsessed with their food, so we went out to Mexican one night a week. And then the rest of the night was chicken pot pie from a box, boxed lasagnas, hamburger helper from a box, anything that was in a box with a pitcher, that's what we ate every night for 2 to 3 years. And I don't know how he stuck with me there either, because who wants to eat that every night? I mean, it was pretty sad. He even said to me, can you learn to cook, please? Can you please read a recipe? Can you do something? And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. So it's just strange how I went from not being able to cook, not knowing how to being scared of cooking. In fact, I got a spice rack 10 years ago as a wedding gift. I didn't know what that was. I thought truly, I'm not lying to you, I thought it was used for decoration on your kitchen counter, so you would have something kind of neat to display, just something there. I never knew what it was. So literally, these spices are sitting there for 8 years doing nothing, just sitting there rotting. But that's how sad it was. But as soon as I accepted this disease, it's just amazing. I started writing recipes, and I started being able to cook. I threw out, of course, the 8-year expired spices and got me some new ones, and it actually made a difference in your food. It tastes really good. And by the way, they do expire after about 6 months. You want to get rid of them. Some of them a little less than that. You can freeze them, but we can talk about that later. But I got me some new ones. I did fail in my kitchen, but I did have some positive cooking. We actually enjoyed food. He actually wanted to stay married to me because he was actually eating real food. It was great. And after a while, I started writing recipe after recipe. I wrote over 1,000 recipes in a short amount of time. It's unbelievable. And I was like, all right, God told me to write a book. This must be how it starts. So I had all these recipes. I couldn't wait to do something with them. During the process, I was like, all right, how do you write a book? I didn't know anyone who designed a book or who made a book, and I had no money because we still can't pay off my doctor bills to this day. So I was like, how do we do this? But again, when God tells you to do something, He will supply, He will come through, and He will give you everything you need. My sister was in North Carolina. She lived in Wake Forest, and she was working with some kind of advisor down there. And it had nothing to do with designing a book or anything. But she met this man through her job who said to her, as she was packing up and leaving to move back home, he said, if there is anything that I can do for you, please let me know. I'll be happy to do it. And she said, well, actually, my sister is trying to write a cookbook. Can you help her? And he said, I'd be happy to. We got in contact with each other, and he designed my cookbook. So, okay, that process is done. Okay, I actually believe in God even more so. If He tells you to do something, He'll make it happen. And it's neat how when you're in God's will and He tells you to do something, it is so neat being able to live the journey of seeing how it can go from something you never thought could happen to a finished product of what He told you to do. It's the coolest thing. So we finally, through all these months of typing the recipes, my husband and I would literally sit at the computer for hours every single day, typing the recipes up, putting them in the computer, cooking the recipes to make sure I didn't kill anyone and that they were actually cookbook worthy. And then we had to pay for this. It does cost money, so we had no clue where this money was going to come from. But God supplied. We had gifts given to us by people. They had no clue what we were working on, but they said, God told me to give this to you, and they did. We had a car that needed to be sold. That gave us some money. tax return. It was a blessing. We were able to pay off some bills at the time and use the rest for a cookbook. So God supplied. This book is expensive, but it was worth it. He supplied. All this time, I'm just, I can't even say it. It's a God experience. Your words cannot come. It's just a wow what God can do for you. It's just amazing. I hope each and every one of you can have this experience of God changing your life, telling you to do something, and then you can see the results of what God tells you to do, especially when you don't think it's possible like this. During this process, I would pray every night, all right, God, is this really what you want me to do? I want you to confirm this to me. Let me know this is what you want for me to do. We went to a Bible birthday party for my husband. One of his coworkers had a birthday party, and I have never met these people before because I don't work there. So I went, and we were in a group, some ladies and I just talking, hanging out, and this woman she knew nothing about me. But she gave me word of prophecy that night, and it scared me to death. Has anyone in here ever had word of prophecy spoken to them? Anyone? It is neat, and it's scary if you've never had it done before, but it is the most incredible thing. We're in the middle of discussing something, who knows what now, but she just, in the middle of the conversation, she just scares everyone and jumps up and just jumps and leaps at me. And it's like, are you attacking me? But she said, God just told me to tell you something. He just told me to tell you that whatever it is you're working on right now, it's going to be huge. It's going to be extremely successful. And I'm kind of looking at her like, all right, who paid you money to say this to me? Because I don't know how you know this. And she was like, she didn't even know my husband that well. I don't think they've even spoken. And I said, excuse me, what did you say? And she said, God told me to tell you whatever it is you're working on right now. And I gave her the look of, okay, who are you? And you're scaring me. And she looked at me and was like, are you working on something? And I said, I am. And she goes, what? And I said, a cookbook. And she said, God again wants me to tell you whatever it is you're working on, it's going to be successful and be very huge. And I was like, okay, thank you for scaring me. Have a good night. We came home. I was scared. That night, I went to do my Bible study. And if anyone has ever had this book, it is amazing. If you do not have this book, you want to get it. Jesus Calling Study Devotion book. It is amazing. Well, that night, as I was doing my devotion, I did what I did every night. And I said, all right, God, if this is what you want me to do, confirm to me that I am doing what you want me to do. I don't ever want to go outside your will again, so please let me know from confirmation that I'm where you want me to be. My devotion reads this: you can achieve the victorious life through living in deep dependence on me. People usually associate victory with success, not falling or stumbling, not making mistakes. But those who are successful in their own strength tend to go their own way, forgetting all about me. It is through problems and failures, weakness and neediness that you learn to rely on me. True dependence is not simply asking me to bless what you have decided to do. It is coming to me with an open mind and an open heart, inviting me to plant my desires within you. I may infuse within you a dream that seems so far beyond your reach. You know that in yourself you cannot achieve this goal. Thus begins your journey of profound reliance on me. It is a faith walk taken one step at a time, leaning on me as much as you need. This is not a path of continual success, but of multiple failures. However, each failure is followed by a growth spurt, nourished and increased on reliance of me. Enjoy the blessedness of the victorious life through your deep dependence on me. How amazing is that? After the word of prophecy, after me saying, God, I need confirmation that this is what you want me to do, that was my devotion that night. That was incredible. Because he did implant something in me, cooking, which I found crazy, but he did do it. And I could not do that on my own. I tried for 2 years to feed my husband and couldn't, so I know it's not something I could do. But through the grace of God and him giving this vision to me, I have made a cookbook. I am cooking on TV. I am doing speaking, which I never wanted to be a speaker. And something that's neat about God's will and what he wants for you is kind of funny. In college in Tennessee, I had to go to a college where speech class was a requirement. And I was so upset because I was like, I'm never going to be a speaker. Why do I need speech? I don't care about learning how to be a speaker. But God knew what he was doing. He needed me in that class because I would need to learn to talk to people like this. So that class was a requirement, and now I see why. My husband filmed me all the time after we were married because he works in TV, so he loves the camera, and he always filmed me, and I was like, stop, that's annoying. But I mean, I had to get used to being in front of people and being on camera and all this other stuff. So God literally will put things in your life that you're like, what on the earth are you doing this for? Why am I taking this? Or why am I doing this? Or who is this person? But he has a reason for every single thing that happens in your life, good, bad, or ugly. During youth camp when I was a child, we were told to do our own devotions. They didn't give you a study book, which kind of annoyed me because, again, I don't like to read. I'm not good at educating myself. So I would literally sit out there on the green lawn at Covenant College in Chattanooga, and I would be like, all right, how am I going to do a devotion today? But it is amazing. God put 2 scriptures into my mind one day, and then the next day he gave me another one. Those scriptures have been my rock. I have stood on those scriptures every single day since then, and they have gotten me through the hardest times in my life. The first one is James 1, 2 through 8. And I'm just going to read 1, 2 through 4 because that's the meat of it that really is just like, wow. And it's, consider it pure joy, my brothers, to face trials of many kinds, because it is the testing of your faith. This faith produced is perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. How amazing is that? Face trials with joy. That's all I have had to do my whole life. I had to face the abuse. I've had to face the I hate myself and I don't want to be here anymore. I had to face the teachers calling me stupid. I had to face all these people making fun of me and bullying me. And it really is perseverance and testing of your faith, because God will give you only what you can handle. And that is what I learned the next day. 1 Corinthians 10:13 was my other verse that God just was like, wow, why don't you read this? No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted, but beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will provide a way that you can endure it. Basically, that's one version, but at the end of it, it says God will not give you anything you cannot handle. And that is the truth. We do not realize how strong we are until we have experienced something. I never knew I was a strong person. I never thought of myself. I've actually found myself as a weak person because of all the stuff I did growing up. People who want to kill themselves are weak to me. But I never was successful. And I asked God every time, why can't I kill myself? I'm doing things that I should be dead, but I wasn't. But God needed me here for a reason, so I was never successful. All the abuse, all the bullying, everything that happened, you would think that I wouldn't be able to handle it, but you know what? God knew that I could handle it. And if anyone in here has had a loss of a job, a loss of a child, a loss of anything, or if you have a long-term illness or anything, you don't think you can handle it, but I promise you, you rely on God and he will make you go through it, and you will be a stronger and better person in the outcome. Now, one thing I want to say though, even though you're in God's will, he is going to still allow bad things to happen. In November of 2 years ago, I went to another specialist with my condition, and she said, yes, you can have children. You're going to be a high-risk pregnancy. It could be dangerous, but you can have children. It can be done. It's been done before. It can be successful. So give it a try. We were scared, but after a lot of praying and a lot of contemplating and talking about it, because I'm in my 30s, I haven't had a kid yet. You would think that we need to get going on it now because we're not getting younger. Last September, we got pregnant, and that was the most exciting time of my life, honestly. And I'm going to try to get through this without crying, but Junior's, we always call it Junior because I'm weird. So Junior's first picture was for October the 25th, and that day was the worst day of my life. I'm on the table, and the technician says to me, just bluntly, your baby is dead. And she said, put your clothes on, and I'll see if a doctor wants to speak to you. She threw us in a storage closet for an hour and a half, and I'm sitting in there crying, thinking, I killed my baby. My heart condition killed my baby. What have I done? And Chris can't do anything. He's helpless. We go, and finally, the doctor decides at the end of her shift, all right, I'll go talk to them now. She puts us in her office, and she says to me and Chris, you're having identical twins, but don't have any hope. They're dead. And I'm sitting in there thinking, you don't even give me a chance to enjoy that I was pregnant and I'm having twins, and now you're telling me to have no hope, they're dead? And then I said, well, maybe it's too early to hear heartbeats. She's like, no. And I said, well, can I pray for a miracle? She goes, what's the point in that? I have never been through such torture in my life. All I ever wanted to be was a mom after so many years, and when you want it so badly and you have something like this happen, it destroys you. I didn't think I could recover from this, but again, God will allow you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. He will allow you to get through it. I had announced it on Facebook, and I told everyone but my parents first, because we went back to Tennessee to surprise them, and anything that could possibly go wrong went wrong. My mom got sick, couldn't be around her. His parents weren't there, so we almost had to break in their house and had the cops called on us, and everything that went wrong. But God made something that I was so frustrated with, and I was taking control of, and He made it perfect in the end, that it was the best surprise for both parents. We could never have made it that awesome. But after we went home and I dealt with this, I didn't leave my house for over a month. I cried every day. I'm still emotionally scarred from this, but long story short, in me saying this, I have lost 2 children. If I can lose 2 children, almost go through a divorce, go through a long-term illness, be abused, try to kill myself, I'm still standing here and I'm begging you to not give up on life or God either. I did for 2 years, and I see that now you need that time. Denial and grieving is a part of life, and I needed that to become who I am today. But do know, like I said, even though you're in God's will, hard times are going to come. You're going to be knocked over, and that's when James 1:2-8 comes to play. Consider it pure joy to face trials of many kinds. I have to consider it joy that I lost my babies. But God had a reason. I didn't like hearing that in the beginning. I hated it when anyone said to me, oh, God has a plan. I know He does, and He does. We're trying again to get pregnant. I have no idea if I'm pregnant right now. I hope I am, but if not, we're going to keep trying, and if it is God's will, we're going to be blessed and happy. If it's not, we're going to be okay with that. I have a husband who loves me more than anything, and most importantly, I have a God who's never left me. He has never, ever failed me, and to me, that is more important than anything. I have lost all my friends through this sickness. They don't want to put up with my new change. They don't want to I'm a burden to them because I can't do what I used to do. I have lost my friends, but you know what? I'm okay with that because I found a loving God that I have never experienced, that if I have no one in my life, I am truly happy. And I want to urge all of you to never give up on God, even in hard times. He will make a way for it to come out amazing. He will actually turn it better than you ever dreamed that it could be. So I'm going to leave you with one more thing. When we were watching the 9/11 10-year anniversary, we had some shows that we were watching. My father being in the military, there's something about people who are in the military, firemen, police officers, what they do is so honorable, and I have to watch everything about it. One night, we watched a show, and it really spoke to me what these people said. Bob Appleby, he is a pastor in Connecticut, and this is what he said. We live in a world today now where people look good on the outside, but they are literally in pain on the inside. Each and every one of us, to some degree, have our own ground zero experience. Carl Keyes finishes that statement with, but each individual person in their own home, in their own school, maybe in their own job or in their own life, they will face a ground zero at some time. Those 9/11s of yours, there feels like there's no one's hand out there to hold on to. And at that moment, God has extended His hand to you for your entire life. When the ground begins to shake underneath you, and that's the time that you find your cross, and that is when you find your ground zero. And when you do, you will realize that there is hope. Now, they said this, I don't know if you remember ever watching anything about it or hearing it on the news, but during this time, all the workers and the people, when they were trying to find the bodies and remains and anything that they could out there, they mentioned, where is God? He left us. God isn't here. We have no hope. But 2 firemen looked off in the distance, and some of the beams that fell came into the form of a cross. And that was them like, wow, God is here in the midst of this. And that is true. What they said, yeah, we weren't at ground zero. I don't know if any of you guys were, but every day is a ground zero for somebody at some point. anything that is traumatic in your life, anything that I have discussed that may have happened to you, or even something else. That is your ground zero. But do know that even though it feels like God has left you, he hasn't. And he wants you to just rely on him. And I promise you, you will come out just in it'll be amazing if you just never give up. So I just want to thank you for letting me come and speak. Really quick, I'm going to just go over my book to let you know how exciting this book is, because I'm kind of excited over it. But since I am no longer allowed to be a nurse, I put my degree into this book. Basically, I wrote a book that is an all-in-one. I wrote it for meat eaters, vegans, vegetarians, gluten-free, dairy allergy, and peanut allergy. Basically, any allergy out there, my book fits every single one of them. Every recipe at that, and I know you're thinking how. But you have my recipe at the top. Then you have tips on how to preserve your food, because I've had to learn to cook on a budget since I can't pay my bills. You learn to have to cook on a budget. So I give you tips on how to preserve food so your food won't go to bad. Plus, every ingredient you buy, you will use again, because I don't like wasted. I cannot stand wasting food. I hate molding or anything. So I learned to reuse it, and I have recipes. You will use it again. Then at the bottom of every page are the alternatives. For gluten-free, vegan, dairy, any allergy you have are the alternatives. So if you have a mixed household, if a meat eater and a vegan, what you would do is just swap out the one ingredient at the top that you can't eat or don't want to eat, or you don't like it, or it's too expensive or too cheap and you want it more. Come down to the alternative section, swap out that ingredient, and you make the same meal. Instead of having to make 2 or 3 different meals for everyone, you make the same thing. And it's going to save money, of course, and everyone gets to enjoy the same thing. It also is going to be a book where you don't have page flipping, because I hate books where you got your fingers into something and then they're like, oh, turn the page, and then you have to wash your hands again, and there's none of this in here. Now, when it comes to the measurements, I kind of scare people, because as we were discussing at my table, I don't own measuring spoons and stuff. I got rid of those because I didn't cook, so I didn't need them, so I got something else with it. But the measurements are ranges. I love flavor. I have very high cholesterol, and so with my high cholesterol, I can't eat a lot of fried foods and Alfredos and stuff like that. So I actually substitute the butters for flavor of the spices that I didn't know existed, and for things like that don't raise levels, and they're healthy for you with antioxidants and cancer-fighting things. So if you don't like a lot of flavor, start at the bottom range and work your way up to the top range. And then you taste your food as you go. And then that's how you make your recipe, is you make it with how much flavor you like or less flavor. But I don't want to be the boss of you, because I'm kind of sweet that way. I don't like bossing anyone around. So I want you to be your own chef, which is the name of the book. I want you to have as much flavor as you want, or as little flavor. But that is about the book. I just wanted to let you know about it. But we are going to sell them back here if you want a book. Mother's Day is coming up, and if you're a young newlywed or whatever, this book is perfect, because again, I'm not a chef. I didn't go to culinary school except in my PJs. This book is literally geared for you. But if you have questions, or if you want to anything, feel free to ask me. I literally am an open book. It's embarrassing. So ask me anything. I'm here, and I just want to thank each and every one of you for letting me speak with you this evening. And that's it.
I didn't know whether she was scaring me at the dinner table earlier, before we started on the speaking. She was telling us all about her lack of cooking skills. And so I'm thinking, okay, she's getting ready to give us a testimony about inspired cooking. So it was kind of scary. And then she said she had no measuring spoons, and she was asking us how to calibrate ovens so that she could cook without it being burnt on the outer edges and gooey on the inner edges.
That's for baking, though. I don't bake.
It was very inspiring to hear how she's come around to her inspirational cooking. I think Satan is involved in some of my cooking efforts. So I'm glad to know that God has been involved in your cooking. And, well, the bowls are gone. The chips must have been a big hit. Were they gluten-free, lactose-free, vegan? They had nothing in them?
I have to say, they were so unhealthy for you, it's disgusting.
Oh, that's why they were so good, yes.
But you have to eat bad sometimes, you know?
So we had the whole house tonight. So again, I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. I hope you enjoyed this opportunity to come together in fellowship and to hear Karen and her testimony, and hope you'll take a few minutes afterwards and go over at the book table and perhaps purchase a book for you or someone else who doesn't cook, and then they can learn as well and share that.